people that scream for the buy and burn, normally I think just they're looking to exit right away, which doesn't do anybody any good, doesn't benefit the long-term holders, and it doesn't benefit the protocol if they just want to dump and leave, make a quick buck. But it's yeah, there's so many different ways to look at it. But at the end of the day, the integrity of the protocol and what's best for the protocol ends up being what's best for the holders. Not best for the short-term Jeets, but what's best for the holders. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. I know holders don't see it that way a lot of times because everybody's a buy and burn expert, but it's tough. You know, we haven't turned the buy and burn on for Inferno X yet, just because it's not time. There's not a lot in there, and it's really not time. One thing about Morph, and if they're able to come up and speak, I think they just set their buy and burn at one place since launch, and I think it's just been trucking away. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they just set it at a low pace, and then it just I don't think they adjust it. I think it just keeps going. And I think that might be a good way, you know, to fire up Inferno X. I don't know, but I don't want to be making changes. I will say this, Blaze, we launched Blaze 100% DeFi, no admin keys. Say the buy and burn on Blaze, there is one, it's small. You know, it gets burned through daily, but we have no admin keys. Good. Well, we launched Inferno with a buy and burn with no admin keys. And guess what? We got bid on that big time. So we ended up getting botted. We weren't able to make any changes. And if you were around for that, it was brutal. So there's a lot of things to consider when you have a buy and burn. I always like to falter back to what's best for the protocol long term, because if it's best for the protocol long term, it's best for the holders long term. So that's just kind of my view on it. And yeah, it's there's so many different opinions on it. My God, I've heard every single opinion about the TITANX buy and burn that there is. And that's all I had.
It's great. Yeah. Thanks, Utah, for that. Yeah, Cryptographics, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks for chiming in there too, as well. And yeah, great to see you again, Utah. And I will definitely. I didn't actually. I don't know how. Have you been posting it on X? Because I legitimately had no idea that you were continuing that Saturday stream. Had I known that, I probably could have made one or two. So I apologize about that, and I would like to come into the next one. Actually, now that I say that, I realize I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe the next one. But thank you for doing that. I'm really happy to hear that. And yeah, and I also want to echo on the topic of this buy and burn conversation. Exactly what you're saying, Utah, is everyone kind of has this idea of what it is. And what I'm not here and starting this conversation to do is for me to tell everyone here, like, you guys don't know what the buy and burn should be used for and trust the guy up front. It's more just to paint a more detailed picture of what goes on, so that when you are thinking about commentary or commenting on the buy and burn and when things should be used and why they should be used, is that your ability to think about it is greater. And you know what I really enjoy, and I said this originally, is I really enjoy hearing all of your feedback. We have some of the smartest people, most intelligent, critical thinking people in this space that understand some of the most advanced concepts in DeFi. And those concepts are household in almost every protocol. And so we already have such a fantastic group of people here that this commentary is not to tell people you don't know what you're talking about. It's more to, like, I would love for everyone to get a deeper understanding so that, you know, people can think outside the box and say something, and then, you know, you never know what you haven't thought of. And I try to show up as much as I can with that sense of, you know, I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And someone else might know what I don't know, whether that's someone that's shown up here for a day or has been here since the early days of TITANX. You know, it's trying to show up with a learning mindset or a student mindset, so to speak. And that's really why I wanted to bring this up. So I don't know if anyone in the who's down just listening right now has anything that they want to bring up about the buy and burn or ask. But I mean, this is different angle at talking about the buy and burn itself that I'm always super interested to go into the weeds with, because it's so much more nuanced and context dependent, and it's like a game of balancing a board where you're simultaneously playing chess on. It is a really weird experience to fully go through. But anyways, we'll stop rambling. That's really it. So yeah, Utah, I appreciate your commentary and you're bang on the money, man. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Cryptographics. We've got Rod. Rod, go ahead. Your turn.
Hi, Plan A. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I haven't been here in a while, but I'm always listening. And
Rod, I think you're rugging. You're rugging on us. I don't know if anybody else could hear Rod, but I'm not hearing him.
No, he's gone.
Yeah, I lost him after a couple seconds.
Yes.
Can you hear us, Rod?
I think he's exiting. He'd probably be returning. Anyway.
Well, in the meantime,
yeah.
Oh, are you back?
Not yet. Well, James, you can go ahead.
Sure. I'd like to weigh in. I'd like to weigh in on.
We'll get him to speak.
I'd like to weigh in on the buy and burn piece, because, as Cryptographics and Utah have said, it's complex. It's interesting. There's a lot of different angles. So, Baby Dragon X was the first DAO in TITANX, and we run the buy and burn 100% based on DAO votes. So that's interesting. That's definitely the holders decide, right? There's got to be a quorum, and the holders decide when to turn it on. It hasn't been on for a long time. Everyone is all holders seem to be of the same mindset. Wait for Dragon X to wake back up. Wait for Smog to kick its tail around and throw some of that treasure near the cave door or the cave vent opening. So with Buildify, whenever, if you build a protocol, you can opt to have a buy and burn. You can feed it with taxes. You can feed it with LP fees. You can feed it from mint. And then you choose one setting, and that is the setting it will always occur on. And it's a publicly callable function. So you can burn really, really slow, which basically takes the total amount of the buy and burn, divides by about 300. And then that's a very long-term buy and burn. Or you can burn super hot, and that's about a 30-day buy and burn. So and then for our other protocols, Pump Uranus, that one, we do just adjust that one. We get community sentiment, we ask questions, but we generally just change it to use up the buy and burn. There's a lot of dollars, there's a lot of economic energy still in the Uranus buy and burn. And now we got Moons, which actually contributes to more volume. Holders get additional reflections. So I've kind of seen both, not all. I've seen a handful of different ways to run buy and burns, and I think there's positive. I think there's pros and cons of each of them. But I think it's exciting to have buy and burn as a concept, period, because a lot of protocols don't have anything like it. Those with hundreds of millions of dollars, $1 billion of TVL, they really have almost no tokenomics. It's just pretty pictures, lots of publicity, got the right names behind it, or it was one of the early ones. So buy and burn is a great subject. Love it when community members bring it up.
Great, thanks, James. And I think on that note, we've got Morpheus. Over to you.
Yo, what up, legends? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, about the buy and burn, with Morpheus, there was the ability to set it, I believe, from 1 to 10%. We set it to 1% from the beginning, just to have the longest extension of buy and burn within the system. I think everybody was expecting the market to be completely different than it was. Like Cryptographic was saying, everything is hinging to ETH. Dragon X is hinged to ETH again. So as long as ETH is not doing anything, all the other things aren't doing anything either. And to use your buy and burn when its value is this low, it makes no sense. So why not wait for the asset to increase in value and then starting to use your buy and burn where everybody could actually utilize from it or have some beneficiation from the buy and burn. Even though the way Morph is set up, the lower the price is, the more Morph will be burned. But that's just secondary thing that usually people do not see. So the lower the price is, the more Morpheus will be burned through the buy and burn. But having said that, yeah, it's a waiting game now. Let's wait for all the assets to actually increase in value so the buy and burn actually can create some interesting candles on the chart, which at the end of the day is the best advertising we could do, right? At this point of the in time, everybody is doing what they are doing. I love your weekly streams that you're doing, but we need to wait for the market to wake up, for retail to come back, for excitement to come back, and then everything changes pretty quickly. And from what we have seen in the past with crypto, it can happen on a dime. Next week, if we are in this conversation, it could be a completely different conversation. I'm not saying that it's going to happen next week, but crypto can fly quickly. And I'll land my plane there. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Morpheus. Yes, cryptographics. You'll come back to that.
Dave, Morph, good to see you up here, man. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's setting it to the low setting, letting it cruise. I mean, it worked wonders for Morph. Morph's crushing it. It always has been. And something I want to bring up here too is there's this is where things get interesting, is because when you have a buy and burn contract, that has a specific value proposition to the protocol, to the community, and at different contexts and time, it becomes more or less valuable as tokens appreciate or depreciate. And one of the things you said was the exact quote, sorry, but you don't want to use all the buy and burn at the lows. What I do want to say is, when there's a buy and build contract, so a liquidity contract versus a burning contract, there can be different viewpoint on that as well. And so I want people to understand, when it comes to burning, funds dedicated for burning versus funds dedicated for liquidity, there can be two different strategies completely, right? And again, it depends in the moment in time on what is best for the protocol, what the users are doing, what the price is, but also what the goals are of the protocol as well. Just to open people's minds to the idea that the build in TORUS might be used differently than the burn, right? Because they are different contracts. They have different functions. They have different contexts that they're useful. They have different end goals, right? And so I believe there's a few protocols that have come out that have used a build contract as well in the future. And I guess I'm bringing this up because I find this stuff really fascinating to think about, when to use the funds, how much of the funds to use, what's the context, how do you make the protocol as strong as possible? How do you grow it as fast but as sustainably as possible? How do you reward users and simultaneously not overdo it so that someone can basically take advantage of the protocol, extract value, you still burning, all these questions. So I guess just to clarify, yeah, the buy and burn and the buy and build are very different in how they work. One is injecting value directly back into the protocol. This is the way I look at the buy and burns. I think I said this before. I don't know if anyone else has talked about this, but I look at the buy and burn as a virtual lending machine of value. The users come into the protocol and they lend value in form of ETH or TITANX to the protocol. And when they do that, the protocol is promising at some point to inject that value back in. The buy and burn. What is actually happening with the buy and burn? The value that was given to the protocol is being returned in form of TITANX or ETH or whatever is taken in to the protocol, to the price chart, which is where value is realized. And so that value has been lended and returned back to the users. But if you have a buy and burn and a buy and build, the way those two portions of value are very, very, very different. And when you look at it from that lens, it really changes the landscape completely. And, you know, thinking about, you know, returning value back to the protocol, that really changed a lot in terms of my perspective. So I don't know if anyone else has thought about the buy and burns and the buy and build as, you know, a virtual lending machine of value, so to speak. But for me, that was pretty cool.
Great. Thanks, Cryptographics. I think this is definitely a very important conversation to have. And I think cryptos of the future must bring value in different ways. The utility clearly is something that we will all agree on. But in addition to utility, cryptos of the future must look at this buy and burn concept. And of course, you introduced the buy and build, which is great. And that's looking at the liquidity of the protocol in a way that isn't common within I would say the crypto industry. And of course, so we're looking at the buy and burn, buy and build, and of course, growing the network. And I think the levers to grow the network would definitely fall on the utility and your buy and burn. That will bring attention. And how you use that, or how you use these levers as a builder to attract attention to your protocol is definitely going to be key. I think TITANX, in all the experimentation that we've seen at the tokenomics level, it is ahead of this. There's no one size fits all. It's all an experiment here. And I think in that sense, we're much further ahead than a lot of communities. And so we're asking the right questions and we're doing the right things. I think James mentioned, of course, he established the first DAO within the ecosystem, the first buy and burn DAO. That's a decentralized form. You also have a further, you have with Blaze, even a more decentralized buy and burn occurred. And of course, you have the centralized model. There are arguments for and against each of these models, but we have experimented with each of these within our ecosystem, and we can, we can definitely see what works and what doesn't. And so, yes, Morpheus, over to you. I'll continue after you.
Yeah, thanks, brother. With the buy and burn, it makes no sense to use a buy and burn when everything is flowing against you. You want to use it with the flow, not against the flow. So as soon as momentum starts picking up and you can inject it while the chart is growing instead of just bleeding, it's a way better way to do things than what everybody wants now, because everybody sees their portfolio just dwindling. So I can understand why they say, just throw on the buy and burn. But it will only be there for people to create bigger red candles again. So if we wait for the momentum to shift and the price start raising and then support the chart, it's way more beneficial for everybody than doing it right now. It makes no sense to go against the flow. You want to go with the flow. And I'll end my plane there.
Great. Thanks, Morpheus. There's definitely a lot of strength in that argument. Definitely. Rich, over to you. What do you have for us?
Yep. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I got a novel idea for the buy and burn. I don't know if anybody's ever thought of this, but maybe the buy and burn should be used to burn the token. I don't know what people think about that, but it seems to be that buy and burn is used for everything but burn the token. And I just don't understand that concept of thinking maybe we should rename the purpose of buy and burn, because to me, you're supposed to remove the supply with the burn function. And if we're not going to do that at these ratios at the best prices, then why do you call it a buy and burn? It seems to be a leverage or manipulator button that people want to call it for something else. So Utah One, you don't give me the mic because I have a very strong opinion about what it should be used for and at the best ratios possible. So I don't get this wait till green candles and we use it to boost everything, because it'll never be used then. Then the people will say, you don't need it now, don't use it, let's wait till later. So it's not being used for what it's purposed for. And therefore I just don't even know why we call it a buy and burn. That's all.
So, Rich, can I just ask, just very quickly, which of the three models that I sort of explained earlier do you think would be or is the best buy and burn model in your view? Is it the DAO version, or is it the centralized version, or do you think the in between? Well, the DAO is the in between, but the centralized and the decentralized would be the other two models. Which of those three do you think would help in addressing the concerns of the community?
I just think, in my opinion, and this is again, I have evidently seem to be alone in this, that we should use the buy and burn to remove the supply, not as a